I am like scary smart.
We're gonna miss the food thing.
To put it best, you know, he put it like, the hole I need filling up is probably not an emotional one.
You know, I wonder sometimes, should we just throw out the scoreboard and just play for the fun of it?
Am I hearing what I'm hearing?
I killed my father with a lobster.
What about you? Why do you hate stars?
Listen, you have to satisfy yourself as a parent first. Otherwise, it's the kids who really get hurt.
Seriously, we're gonna play a game. I can't keep my eyes open. Sorry.
I don't know much about you, really.
What do you want to know?
Where do you work? Where do you live? Something really weird just happened at the train station. I saw her go kill herself, and she looked exactly like me.
But there's also a real art to making a short film that is about that, and it isn't necessarily always about parlaying it into a feature or parlaying it into a television series, but that short film making is a whole other skill that's different from a feature film, and trying to tell a story within 8 minutes that has a beginning, a middle, and an end that's interesting and connects to people and that people can relate to is a skill that's a totally different one from trying to tell a story over an hour and a half, which possibly you can speak to, Karen, as a writer.
Yeah, I mean, it's very, very much, even if it's short form, even if it's proof of concept, you're always trying to tell an amazing story. You know, it's the difference between short fiction and like a gigantic novel, right? And the skills required are similar, but they're not the same, so your goals aren't the same as well.
Right.
When you're working with short subject, to do it successfully, you're really going for a very specific moment or a very specific turn. Where when you have longer form, it's about arcs and, you know, moving someone from point A to point Z. And in a short form, it's much more focused on a very special or unique or specific emotional experience.
And freeing in a way, right? Because you can you don't have to follow any kind of structure.
Oh, it's so awesome to write short because it's like poetry. You can do whatever, you can say what you want. I mean, whether it works or not is another matter, but
Sure.
you're not sort of hostage to the
structure?
conventional formats of 22 minutes for a half hour, 57 minutes for cable hour, 90 minutes for a Canadian feature, 120 minutes for an American feature. Like, you're not counting pages for that reason. You're counting pages more often for your wallet and your resources in a short form, as opposed to, you're more focused on what kind of experience you want to give the audience in a quick hit. Well, that's
Are
the
there
art of it.
tips that are specific to short films that are different? Are there?
I think it's the scope and the scale. It's for me, it's always about the intimacy. I can afford, same as production values, I can afford to bear down, like lean in and drill down on something very specific. And that's usually what I'm trying to do in a short form, or if I'm producing a short, that's what I want the script to be. Like, the point is to complete an experience, or invite me somewhere so fast and so stealthily that I can have.
Yeah, because you have to get people fat. Like
Exactly.
in 30 seconds, you have to go, here's the story I'm going to tell.
Exactly, totally different approach than the slow bleed into, a feature film where they show you the landscape.
5
They
minutes
show
of-
you a house, and you're 7 minutes in before you've met anything and anything's happening. But a short film is over.
I think, I mean, just to give a specific example for something from my own work, I made this short we mentioned called Out. We played TIFF. Out is about a man coming home to give his parents some news, and they expect him that he's going to sit down and he's going to come out to them, but he tells them he's a vampire. And so it's like a twist on a coming out story. So it's very simple, but but it was also something. So we made it, and it was fun, and it turned out really well. We got a tip, and then it just kind of exploded. It was also, I think part of it was that it played into like LGBT themes, so that took on because there's a whole festival market just for that subgenre of filmmaking, and then the vampire thing I don't think hurt.
The thing for me and why I really like shorts is that, and I'll use a great example, a film that I produced in January called Sidori, which we shot in Karachi, Pakistan. It's a zombie drama, and I saw the short at the Worldwide Short Film Festival, and I thought, this is so amazing, this would be a great film. And I approached the director after the panel and I said, have you thought about turning this into a short film? And he said, as a matter of fact, yeah, I've always wanted to make it into a film, but I was looking for a producer. I said, well, you've looked no farther. And we developed it over a year and a half, and then we went to Pakistan and shot it. But there's many shorts that eventually get turned into features, and the Harold Greenberg Fund, for example, has a program in Canada where they have a short feature program where you apply. If you get selected, you shoot the short, and you go automatically into development on a feature version of that short.
Right.
And that's huge. I mean, they're greenlighting 5 of those a year now. And, a lot
That's
of...
the Harold Greenberg Fund?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Bravo Fact. I mean, a lot of the Bravo Fact
Yeah.
stuff now, where people are using the Bravo Fact as a way of either using it as proof of concept for series or else a proof of concept for a feature film.
Like, for example, like Bastards I made as kind of a proof of concept for a TV series concept I wanted to play with.
Mm-hmm.
We've been using it for that purposes as well, and now it's in development and it's moving forward slowly but surely as it goes.
Has everybody here done some sort of crowdfunding?
I was going to say, so Pocket Change Film back in 2008 was really a start.
That's what I mean, like that was before.
For the crowdfunding social calendar of putting a jar around the city, and many cities, like the brothers and sisters of the other filmmakers had jars in their cities where they were living, in the East Coast and in Vancouver, and they were collecting change. That led to, what is now Indiegogo, Kickstarter, and asking the world, but when you use those sources to not ask for money, you're giving something in return. You're making you're building an audience before it's even made, because they can't wait to see.
Yeah, it's a whole new world now,
It
right?
is.
Like, I mean, it really.
And it's, short films, it's ideal for. It really is, because you don't have to ask for a lot of money. And then you get the examples of Veronica Mars that go on one day and they say, well, we want to raise $2 million. And they do that on the first day, on a 60-day campaign.
Is there a typical budget size of a short film, or is it really, is it like feature length and that it could be anything from it to anything?
For our film, our mandate was that we wanted to pay everybody. And so we cashed in some chips and got some favors, but for the most part, we were able to pay our DP, who is fantastic, a really nice rate, and our cast for ACTRA. We raised about $6,000 through Indiegogo, which we ended up putting, I think, 2,000 or 3,000 of our own money into the film.
Mm-hmm.
So for us, we didn't really know what we would need. We just wanted to raise what we wanted to pay our entire crew and our cast. And then we were able to get some great post-production services. So our goal was to pay everybody and raise as much as we could, so there was no set amount for us.
Yes, like, for example, I did 2 short films in the same year, Out and Bastards. And Out we made in an afternoon for a couple $100s.
A couple of hundred?
$200.
Like less than
It
1,000?
was just basically food.
Okay.
Yeah, it was like food and then like a colorist. Like we got something like do like color and mixing at the end. So those are the hard costs. And then Bastards we got a Bravo Fact, and it was $50,000. So it's like, but that's because we have that money, and we needed a mansion. We had like a fire we had to do. We had a big cast.
What about festivals? What are festivals looking for in a short film?
I'm not a festival expert, but just often on juries. So what I've noticed is it seems to be different every festival, and sometimes every year festivals remandate or they renew or refresh their vision for what their artistic programming is going to be every few years. So it's worth keeping on top of and track of. But
How do you find that out? Like,
what I do is simply talk to the festival. Usually, programmers are quite happy, not in the middle of it when the deadline's closed and everybody in the world is calling them asking, why are my film slammed? But the rest of the year when they're not slammed, they're happy to talk to people. So I, right from the beginning, and probably because I started in a co-op, a collective of filmmaking-wise, it was always sort of totally appropriate, and you build relationships with the festival itself that way. You talk to them about what they're seeing. And I think that's really useful, because it helps you plan what you decide to create for them, or hoping to create for them. But I think in general, you really have to look at the festival itself and figure out whether or not you make your priorities, because sending out your films is expensive, and entering lots is expensive. Right?
My first short back in 2006 was a short called For All the Marbles, which is a kid's adventure on a playground. It's basically Indiana Jones on a playground, and it was it stars a bunch of 8 and 10-year-olds. So you cater to, we got it into Sprockets, which at the time was the short film festival for kids from TIFF. And you go after the ones that specify for that. I mean, obviously, you wanted to get into as many as possible, but it was very successful with that and has toured a lot of children's festivals. And there was children's hospitals that bring in those kind of shorts to show kids in wards that want to entertain those. And so you can have shorts that cater to multiple audiences, exactly.
But you also have to know what the best festivals that you should be submitting to, and I do a spreadsheet where I put the name of the festival, when the deadline is, when the festival is, do they have to be a world premiere or a Canadian premiere, a North American premiere, and what the cost of submitting is. You're going to have develop a budget of what's the maximum you can afford to spend on your festival submissions, and then prioritize what are the ones that are realistic to submit to. I mean, the chances of getting into Sundance, Berlin, Cannes, I mean, is it worth spending $100, $150? I would say no.
And there's a fee for every submission?
Yes. And the other thing is,
you can get waived sometimes.
Sometimes, but the big ones you can't.
So the trick is to try to hit the early deadlines if you can.
If you can. But again, you've only got so much money in the kitty to submit. You could spend thousands on festival submissions. And be very strategic. Build that spreadsheet with all that kind of information, and then make sure and sign up for Without a Box and Film Freeway and some of these other sites that they'll send you notifications in your email regularly of when the festival deadlines are coming up, so you don't miss any of them.
I made a 20-minute short film as my thesis from the film school, and then left realizing that the worst thing you can do is make a 20-minute short film, because no film festival program you outside of student film festivals.
What's the typical length? 8
minutes to 9, under 10 for sure. Like the shorter the better, really. Get in, get out, be amazing, leave your mark, and the longer it comes down to a numbers game with shorts, because
20 minutes is 22 minutes is a half an hour.
That's just it. But also it's like short films are made up of, they have a certain amount of time for their blocks for their programs. And so putting your 20-minute short in means that there's 3 8-minutes aren't going to go under, 3 6 minutes. I mean, basically you have to be better than 3 other films that are shorter than yours.
Can anybody speak to the distribution of short films? How you kind of get it out there? Like, what's the process? And I'm sure there's a few, but
So,
as
a distributor, I'm a distributor as well as a producer and everything else. And there are a number of countries and places around the world that buy shorts. They're non-exclusive deals, which means you can sell them anywhere else that you want. Some will pay you as much as $25 a minute for your short. And a lot of filmmakers are getting them out that way. Obviously, having a life on the internet through YouTube and things like that to build an audience is a good vehicle for your film. Air Canada does buy shorts, CBC does buy shorts, Moviola used to buy shorts. They sometimes do and sometimes don't now here in Canada. And if it's a documentary short, for example, there are a number of places that you can put the film in that way as well.
what about in terms of the getting talent for a short film, or like what's the process for people? Is it the same, you feel, as like feature filmmaking? Like how do you access talent?
Well, I think that if the story is good and you want to support, I mean, I got into film, so I'm a talent agent at the Characters Talent Agency as well. Mm-hmm. And part of the story of making a good short film is obviously casting. Casting is what's going to sell you anywhere from 2 to 8 minute short, because you need to tell it really well. There's also from the actor's perspective of doing short film as well it doesn't have to be the filmmaker's reason of doing them. Actors, especially young up and coming actors, can do short films specifically to build a reel, to build experience, to learn about the craft before they even hit the set of an episodic television show being done in Toronto, or a feature, because they don't have that experience. So short film is often a way for them to learn. Actors also need to know what everyone on a set does, and that's your best bet. Like really entrench yourself with what the grips do and what all the key players do on a set, because then they can learn as well as perform. So it's not just about performing and showing what they can do, but it's also about learning how a film is made, so that on their first day on a major professional set, they're not lost.
Let's join us, everyone.
I'm Shauna McDonald. I'm really sorry I was late. I was in a parking lot on the Lake Shore. I have done a lot of short films, and Tasso Lakis, who is the head of the TIP program at Actor, called me the short film tip queen at one point because I did so many. And the reason I did so many of them was because I actually feel it's kind of an industry responsibility to nurture the next generation of filmmakers. And if Actor can provide actors who are able to do short films for people at a lesser rate, I think it's a nice way to pay back the next generation of filmmakers. I've worked with some, you probably have too, I know you've done a lot of shorts.
Yeah.
It's really exciting to work with young people or even older people who are getting, moving into filmmaking as opposed to, I don't know, lighting, or, they're directing for the first time and they've been an editor for a long time. So it's a really exciting platform to move with somebody who's new at it. It starts with the writers, so if you've written something that's spectacular, get it in front of an actor and get them to champion it. And you know what, it just takes one person to like your project and get behind it. And then it's a steamroller,
Is there anything that anybody wished they had known before they kind of got started making a short film?
I kind of wish I knew how I would feel in the editing room while we were shooting. I think the assistant director in me kind of took over while we were shooting, because there were shots that I know that I wish I had when we were sitting in the editing room, and there were just those moments when you're cutting it together and you don't really know. You cut it in your mind when you're shooting it, when you read the script, but when you're actually sitting with the editor, that's when you look back and realize, like, if I had just taken that extra time to get the shot that I really wanted and really trusted that I wish I knew what that felt like while we were actually shooting.
Live and learn.
That's a really good point, actually, because doing shorts, I learned as a writer that I always wanted my editor to read us before we locked script. Not just the DP and the director and the producer, but I wanted the editor to weigh in on the script before we shot. And then as a producer, what I learned was, wow, short films can be as exactly much work as paperwork-wise as a feature film. Oh my God. And they have the same sort of lifespan. Like, you spend the next year putting stuff in padded envelopes. Like, indie-wise, it doesn't. All the same skills are required. So it's excellent practice if you aspire to indie features or producing in general. A short form presents all the challenges intellectually and social skills-wise required to put anything together. It's sort of a microcosm of exactly that experience, and perfectly so.
Getting back to your question about what would we do differently, for me it's like I would have made more shorts, and I still like to make shorts, and I still plan to make shorts. Everyone wants to say, oh, we're shooting on the Red, we're shooting on the Alexa, and it's like, it's great to say that, and it's amazing, but for most, if you're an indie filmmaker, it's about the story first and foremost. If it looks great second, that's great. It's really, unless you're going for like a noir kind of thing, it's like then the aesthetic is super important. But generally speaking, Sundance in particular is notorious for, last year they had a film called Tangerine that was shot on an iPhone. Didn't look great, the story was amazing. Very, very heartfelt. And that's the bottom line, is like tell your story, the visuals, make them as good as you can, but it's secondary to the emotion and the intent of the story.
My biggest fear with this film was that people would watch it and say, oh, it looks great, and not actually be moved by it.
Let's jump to Twitter questions. What is the biggest challenge in fitting compelling characters into a short?
It's exactly the same question as why you're making the movie, right? You're not trying to make a feature film fit in to 8 minutes. So you're not writing the same way, and you're not casting the same for the same reasons. Like, we all know that we have all kinds of caveats in television, for instance, especially in television, about who can play a role that we create. Whereas this isn't quite the question. It's not about jamming something big into something little. You're ideally conceiving something right for the frame that for the amount of time you're telling. So what is the story determines your character, or what is the character determines your short story.
I think it's a dance between, to cut other people out, but the writer, director, and actor really to bring a character to the screen on the small screen, well, the short film screen. It's about economy and detail, because you don't have a lot of time. If you know, like a 6-minute short, you can't dilly-dally around. You know, if I go over and pick up that maple syrup, it better be for a reason. You know, you don't have a lot of time. So it's the writer, the director, and the actors all knowing that everything they do means something. In this, you know, you have less time to tell your history, and so if you can impact that in clothing, in a movement, in choice of something. You know, you watch a great actor in a short film, and it's incredible what you could, in the first frame, you see them and you're like, oh, I know, he's had a hard day, he's had blah, blah, blah. You know, that's about your team bringing all of that together, and going right back to the writer who, you know, I have an enormous amount of respect for, because that's where it all begins, in the writing. And when you read a good script, you can see, oh, I can add this to it, I can add to this, because they've already given you so much from what's on the page about your character, the details that they put in there, that really inform you about the past and where this character's going and what they want and what their obstacles are to get it.
You just reminded me, the one thing that I would suggest, if you write, and you want to write short form specifically, the thing that really turned a corner for all of the kind of writing I do a long time ago, but read poetry. If you read modern poetry, you'll understand compression and rhythm and essence very quickly, and that's how you actually design a character. You don't design a character going, I want a shot like this and this, you know, insert your pseudonym for attractive character trait. You don't write that way when you're really a writer. You write for, I'm trying to take you somewhere, and I don't want you to think about whether or not you left the iron on the whole time you're with us, right? So I'm trying to suck you in. And modern poetry, brutal use of efficient economy, right? It's about the essence. There's no extra words on this page for a reason.
And I think there's something to be said for some elegant simplicity, and just finding a little nugget of truth, and then building from there. As long as it's believable, small things can be big.
What most differs Canadian films from others?
But it's like, I don't like the idea of Canadian film being a genre. You know, I hate it whenever someone says, what makes a film Canadian? I'm like, nothing.
But we have been, especially in the last 3 to 5 years, really identifying ourselves as Canadian film or indie Canadian film or whatever. And I'd put our crews, our cast, our writers up against anybody in the world, bar none. We blow everybody out of the water.
Do you think that Canada helping out with funding the film industry has helped Canadian film be more recognized?
No, I would say it's, listen, it's our talent pool. We have more films being nominated for Oscars and other awards every year. I mean, Denis Villeneuve and everybody else. I mean, we're being world recognized for the films that we're making, and our talent is now moving on to make big, huge films like Dallas Buyers Club, etc. Because our talent is just getting that much better every day.
I mean, is that because we're publicly financed?
No, absolutely not. We make over 300 films a year in Canada, of which 275 are independently financed, not government funding.
Thank you to everybody who came today in the audience, and a huge thank you to our panel.